You know what? I'm unemployed. Let's see what anime news is out there right now.
Netflix One Piece producers to make live-action Samurai Champloo adaptation, and creator Shinichiro Watanabe will be involved.
No one asked for this. Am I still gonna watch it?
Absolutely.
Hey y'all, it's me back from the YouTube graveyard.
I have been laid off again.
But more importantly, before we get into the details about that, let's chat a little bit about this potential Samurai Champloo live action adaptation on the horizon, okay? Long story short, I don't know how to feel about it. As someone who has recently gotten into the One Piece franchise, I'm only on like episode 100 right now, so I got a long way to go, I'm not gonna lie. And as someone who is aware that there is a live action of the One Piece anime, I'm a little bit hesitant to watch the live action. There have been trends with adaptations of animations, such as Death Note, such as Avatar: The Last Bender, even Erased, randomly, of anime thriller, who often get very mixed reviews, mostly skewing on the negative side. Now, I can only speak for myself in my personal viewing experience of these adaptations. That said, I'm nervous for this one. I'm nervous because the world of Samurai Champloo really blends worlds. The world building of that story, it is built in like Edo period Japan. I'm curious how they're gonna replicate that. I'm curious how they're gonna find the right casting and the right personalities without them being too over the top, which I think that's a huge part of the downfall with adaptations of anime. The reason anime is so successful as a medium is because there's a level of emotional expression that only feels natural when it's coming from in an animated form of media, versus when a human being is doing it, it automatically comes across as performative, because it is. It literally is. At that point, it is theater. But at the same time, knowing the history of Japan with things such as no theater and kabuki theater, this is an art that isn't foreign to the culture. And with Shinichiro Watanabe directly working on the production of this adaptation, I have a little bit more hope about it. I think if there is a strong hold of Japanese producers and filmmakers who are leading the creative and the visual style of this adaptation, then that makes me have a little bit more faith in the execution in the final product. Although, I do want to point out that from that post, it looks like it's going to be released
Through Netflix.
which is the same platform that things like Death Note, Avatar: The Last Airbender, albeit that is an American anime, and even things like Kimi ni Todoroke, From Me to You, has been released on Netflix, all with mixed reviews. And you know what? I don't know how deeply Netflix is involved with production companies in Japan, but what I do know, I referenced the Asian Boss is the K-drama industry in trouble video on YouTube. I reference this video when I say it's a very crooked industry. By the way, I got laid off from like being a social media video producer. So as someone who had worked in a creative production industry, I understand how crooked it can get, and I understand how the funding and the budgeting for these kind of productions can very quickly become something that is not sustainable for producers, for talent, for even like post-production. Like, I get it now because I've seen it. Insert pictures of me working in creative production, by the way. I've never worked, obviously, like on an anime production or a series or a film or anything, but I have seen the bottom line and the funnel breakdown of the budgeting for productions, and it's very cutthroat. It's very tight, and it truthfully makes all the difference. One of the biggest examples I can give is the Kimi ni Todoroke adaptation remake, which is something I talked about in a video from last year, which you can watch. It was almost something that I perceived as overproduced. It made the story very dreamy, but again, it's this issue of actors portraying animated emotions as human beings, where at some points it was a little bit too performative, and there's almost like a barrier between the audience, the viewer, and the actual story and the actors and actresses. But at other points, I felt it was very successful in the overall style, visuals and aesthetics of Kimi ni Toroke. I feel like it really succeeded on that side of production. And I feel like with Samurai Champloo specifically, because there is so much of that grittiness and like kind of urban undertones, with Nujabes being like the grandfather of lo-fi and really like making a resurgence within the mid 2010s and especially in the 2020s, which I also talked about in my Samurai Champloo deep dive video, how they're going to emulate that in the live adaptation and keep it feeling authentic to the original story. That is something I'm concerned about. I want them to really respect Nujabes and Shingo 2's and Fat John's work and heart that they put into the music, because music is honestly like such a big part of the story. And I want them to respect the historical aspect of Samurai Champloo, even though albeit not always like correct, because it is a fictional story. It did follow some historical components of the Edo period time in Japan, the fall of the Bushido, the fall of the samurai, and basically how they're kind of turning this corner between the Edo and then the Meiji period. It'll just be interesting because Samurai Champloo really takes place in such a tumultuous time in Japan before it became such a conquering nation and wanting to conquer more than the country itself. And not just conquer, but
Truly colonize.
like Japan wanted to colonize a bunch of Asia. That's just the truth of the matter. And you really feel that as an undertone in any kind of like superiority or authoritarian characters within the show. And for an actor or an actress to present that in a way that feels authentic, historically correct, and also not over the top animated, but also not too subtle, is going to be such a challenge. Another thing I'm a little bit worried about is how they're going to represent the characters like Fu, Mugen, and Jean. If there's one thing that stood out is how Mugen was very representative of the Okinawan people during the Edo period, like having the tan. I hope like in the live adaptation it reigns true to that in skin tone, which is something I know that the culture of Asia has issues with at times, especially if you're a tanned Asian. So that's something I'm curious about. I hope they choose someone who represents Mugen especially well, because that's my man. Mugen better look exactly like animated Mugen, or I don't want to see it. End of story, period. But I don't know. I have hope with Shinichiro Watanabe being on this project that it can be successful. And I don't want to bring negativity to the idea of it being an adaptation. And I hope he has discernment being an animation director and really an auteur within this industry. It has to be over 30 years at this point, and having discernment with how to work with distributors like Netflix and Western producers. And I just have to believe and hold on to the fact that it will come out as a live adaptation story that will not disappoint the fans. Like I said in my deep dive video, I think one of the biggest strengths of Samurai Champloo the anime is the agedness of it. It really gives you a sense of nostalgia and it reminds you the early 2000s style and like the late 90s grittiness of anime, from like the fighting styles to the character design itself. It just felt so real, even though it was animated. And to be able to emulate that in an adaptation is going to be a challenge. And I hope it doesn't ruin that nostalgia. But on the flip side, it could grow the fan base even more to these new generation anime watchers and viewers. And so, I don't know, I'm excited. Someone actually went back to my Samurai Champloo deep dive video and requested me to talk about this. So thank you to that commenter for doing that. Now for the little quick life update section. Yeah, your girl became a social media video producer for about 6 months after she was crashing out all of last year and never posted the Lucky Star video. And I loved that job. Not gonna lie, loved that job. No, I wasn't making fun YouTube videos about anime for a bunch of people, but I was making a bunch of social media videos for a bunch of businesses in my region, in my area. And there was something very fulfilling about that. I had a lot of the creative lead on all of the videos I produced. I produced up to 360 videos in the 6 months I was there. And I did everything from social media strategy to video ideation to scripting. to filming to directing. I did everything that you can do. I was a mini production studio. You know, it is what it is. Life happens. Thankfully, I now have the experience of being laid off the first time this time around, and thankfully I am on unemployment, so that's a win for me. And I'm trying to believe I'm lucky. I'm lucky, I'm lucky, I'm lucky. Maybe this is the world's way of telling me and pushing me to try to make YouTube videos once more in my life and maybe do it successfully, but we shall see. I am wearing green today because it is St. Patrick's Day, so wish me luck. We'll see how things go with this new self-employment, unemployment era again. Turning 30 this year, by the way, what the heck? I still have a roof over my head. I still have my content creation room, which I can put to use again because I don't have to be in a studio office 5 days a week anymore. Thank you so much for watching this video. Comment below any other kind of videos you might want to see from me. Or let me know if you guys are going to watch the live action adaptation. I'm sure it's going to be at least a year or two before this is even released, when and if it's confirmed. And check out all of my links below. You'll find me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Those are my main platforms. And if you're wondering what I'm doing now, I'm doing social media video consulting. So I can give people video feedback, I can help you with scripting your videos, and I have very, very, very limited editing spots open because that takes up a lot of my energy, and I want to make my own content and be here because at the end of the day, this is what I love doing, and I hope you guys love watching it. Stay tuned. I will be uploading weekly videos. I have the time. Like, comment, subscribe.
I feel so awkward.
And I'll see you guys in the next video.